1. Foolish monkeys. Before several centuries, there was a very large, dense, and dark forest. A group of monkeys arrived at the forest. It was winter season, and the monkeys struggled hard to survive the freezing cold nights. They were hunting for fire to get warm. One night, they saw a firefly and considered it a dab of fire. All the monkeys in the group shouted, "Fire, fire, fire, yeah, we got fire." A couple of monkeys tried to catch the firefly and it escaped. They were sad as they could not catch the fire. They were talking to themselves that they couldn't live in the cold if they didn't get the fire. The next night, again they saw many fireflies. After several attempts, the monkeys caught a few fireflies. They put the fireflies in a hole dug in the land and tried to blow the flies. They blew the flies very hard without knowing the fact that they were flies. An owl was watching the activities of the monkeys. The owl reached the monkeys and told them, "Hey, those are not fire. They are flies. You won't be able to make fire from it." The monkeys laughed at the owl. One monkey replied the owl, "Hey old owl, you don't know anything about how to make fire. Don't disturb us." The owl warned the monkeys again and asked them to stop their foolish act. "Monkeys, you cannot make fire from the flies. Please hear my words." The monkeys tried to make fire from the flies. The owl told them again to stop their foolish act. "You are struggling so much, go take your shelter in a nearby cave. You can save yourself from the freezing cold. You won't get fire." One monkey shouted at the owl and the owl left the place. The monkeys were simply doing the foolish activity for several hours and it was almost midnight. They were very tired and realized that the words of the owl were correct and they were trying to blow a fly. They sheltered themselves at the cave and escaped from the cold. We may go wrong many times and should seek and accept the advice suggestions provided by others. 2. The secret of happiness. Once upon a time, there were 3 brothers named Samuel, Timothy, and Xander, who lived in a cottage by the woods. They were honest and hardworking. Every day, they would venture into the forest to fell wood. Later, they would sell it in the market where it would fetch a decent price. Thus, their life continued in this manner. However, the brothers were always sad and morose. Even though they lived a good life, they were unhappy. Each one hankered for something or the other and would pine for it. One day, while Samuel, Timothy, and Xander were returning home from the woods carrying their bundle of logs, they saw an old haggard woman bent low with a sack on her back. As they were kind and compassionate, the brothers immediately approached the poor woman and offered to carry the sack all the way to her home. She smiled and expressed her gratefulness, while replying that the sack actually contained apples that she had collected in the forest. Samuel, Timothy, and Xander took turns in carrying the sack, and at last, when they reached the woman's home, they were very tired indeed. Now, this old woman was no ordinary person and had magical powers. Pleased with the brothers' kind and selfless nature, she asked them whether there was anything she could help them with, as a reward. "We are not happy, and that has become our greatest cause of concern," replied Samuel. The woman asked what would make them happy. Each brother spoke of a different thing that would please him. "A splendid mansion with plenty of servants would make me happy. There is nothing more that I would want," said Samuel. "A big farm with lots of harvest would make me happy. Then I could be rich without having to worry," said Timothy. "A beautiful wife would make me happy. Every day, after returning home, her sweet little face would light me up and make me forget my sorrows," said Xander. "That is fine," said the old woman, "if these things will give you happiness, you deserve them in every respect for helping a poor helpless person like me. Go home, and each of you shall find exactly what you have wished for." This took the brothers by surprise as they did not know about the woman's powers. Nevertheless, they took leave and returned home. But lo behold, beside their cottage, there was a huge mansion with a doorman and other servants waiting outside. They greeted Samuel and ushered him in. At some distance, a yellow farmland showed itself. A plowman came and announced that it belonged to Timothy. Timothy gasped. Just at that moment, a beautiful maiden approached Xander and coyly said that she was his wife. The brothers were beside themselves with joy at this new turn of events. They thanked their lucky stars and adapted to their new lifestyles. The days passed and soon a year was over. The situation was, however, now different for Samuel, Timothy and Xander. Samuel had grown tired of owning the mansion. He became lazy and did not supervise his servants into taking proper care of the mansion. Timothy, who had built a decent house next to his farmland, found it burdensome to plow the fields and sow seeds from time to time. Xander, too, grew used to his beautiful wife and no longer found any joy in keeping her company. In short, all of them were unhappy again. One day, the three of them met up and decided to visit the old woman at her home. That woman has magical powers which turned our dreams into reality. However, since we are no longer happy, we must go and seek her help now. It is she who will be able to tell us the secret to attaining happiness, said Samuel. When they came to the old woman, she was cooking stew in a pot. Greeting her, each of the brothers recounted how he had turned unhappy again. Please tell us how we can once more be happy, said Timothy. Old woman, well, replied the old woman. It is all in your own hands. See, when each of you made his wish and it was granted, you were happy. However, happiness never lasts without a very important thing, content. Earlier, since you were happy but never really content or satisfied, boredom and misery overcame you and you became sad again. Only if you learn to be content, can you truly enjoy the bliss of happiness. Samuel, Timothy and Xander realized their mistake and went back home. They saw how lucky they were to have the gifts for which they had once craved. Samuel felt grateful for being the owner of a mansion and began taking good care of it. Timothy began to plow his land diligently so as to have a good harvest in time. Xander too learnt to appreciate his pretty wife's chores in the house and her devotion towards him. Remembering that happiness and content went side by side, never again did the brothers take their blessings for granted. And thus, they lived happily ever after. 3. Real solution to problems. A group of employees was working in a software company. It was a team of 30 employees. This was a young, energetic, and dynamic team with keen enthusiasm and desire to learn and grow. The management decided to teach the employees about finding real solution to the problems. The team was called to play a game in a banquet hall. The group was quite surprised as they were called for playing game. All reached the venue holding various thoughts. As they entered the hall, they found the hall decorated beautifully with colorful decorative papers and balloons all over the place. It was more like a kids' play area than a corporate meeting hall. Everyone was surprised and gazed at each other. Also, there was a huge box of balloons placed at the center of the hall. The team leader asked everyone to pick a balloon from the box and asked them to blow it. Everyone happily picked a balloon and blew it. Then the team leader asked them to write their names on their balloon, carefully so that the balloons didn't blow up. All tried to write their names on the balloons, but not everyone was successful. A few balloons blew up due to pressure and they were given another chance to use another balloon. Those who failed to mark their names even after the second chance were ruled out of the game. After the second chance, 25 employees were qualified for the next level. All the balloons were collected and then put into a room. The team leader announced the employees to go to the room and pick the same balloon that had his name on it. Also, he told them that no balloon should blow up and warned them to be very careful. All 25 employees reached the room, where the balloons carrying their names were thrown here and there. They were searching for the respective balloons carrying their names. While they were in a rush to find the respective balloons, they tried not to burst the balloons. It was almost 15 minutes and no one was able to find the balloon carrying his own name. The team was told that the second level of the game was over. Now it is the third and final level. They asked the employees to pick any balloon in the room and give it to the person named on the balloon. Within a couple of minutes all balloons reached the hands of the respective employee and everyone reached the hall. The team leader announced, "This is called real solutions to the problems." Everyone is frantically hunting for solutions to the problems without understanding the ideal ways. Many times, sharing and helping others give you real solutions to all problems. Help out each other to ease things. 4. The most beautiful heart. One day, in a heavily crowded place, a young man began shouting, "People, look at me. I have the most beautiful heart in the world." Many people looked at him and were stunned to see his beautiful heart in a perfect shape, without any flaw. It looked quite amazing. Most of the people who saw his heart were mesmerized by the beauty of his heart, and praised him. However, there came an old man who challenged the young man, "No, my son, I have got the most beautiful heart in the world." The young man asked him, "Show me your heart, then." The old man showed his heart to him. It was very rough, uneven, and had scars all over. In addition, the heart was not in shape, it appeared like bits and pieces joined in various colors. There were some rough edges, some parts were removed, and fitted with other pieces. The young man started laughing, and said, "My dear old man, are you mad? See, my heart. How beautiful and flawless it is. You cannot find even a bit of imperfection in my heart. See, yours? It is full of scars, wounds, and blemishes. How can you say your heart is beautiful? Dear boy, my heart is just as beautiful as your heart is. Did you see the scars? Each scar represents the love I shared with a person. I share a piece of my heart with others when I share love, and in return I get a piece of heart, which I fix at the place from where I have torn a piece," said the old man. The young man was shocked. The old man continued, "Since the pieces of heart I shared were neither equal nor in the same shape or size, my heart is full of uneven edges and bits and pieces. My heart is not in shape because sometimes I do not get love in return from those to whom I gave it. Your heart that looks fresh and full with no scars indicates that you never shared love with anybody. Isn't that true?" The young man stood still and did not speak a word. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He walked to the old man, tore a piece of his heart and gave the piece to the old man. Many give importance and respect to physical beauty. Yet, real beauty is not physical. 5. The Story of Thumbelina. Once upon a time, a simple and kind-hearted woman lived carrying one desire in her mind. She had only one simple dream. Her dream was to have a baby girl. Days and months passed by, but her dream did not come true. Her desire to have a little girl grows stronger and stronger. One day, to make her dream come true, she visited a witch. She expressed her desire to have a baby girl. The witch offered a magic barley grain and asked her to plant it. The birth of Thumbelina. Although the woman wasn't happy, she had a hope and planted the magic grain in a flower pot. To her surprise, the very next day, the magic barley grew into a beautiful big flower bud, which appeared like a tulip. Mesmerized by the beauty of the flower, she softly and gently kissed the bud. Since it was a magic flower, it blossomed instantly with her kiss on the bud. The woman was greatly surprised as inside the flower sat a tiny and cute little girl, who looked as small as a thumb. The woman named her Thumbelina. Thumbelina's life. She became the part of the woman's life. The woman provided Thumbelina everything she needed. She used walnut shell as her bed, petals of violet flower as her mattress and petals of beautiful roses as her blanket. Thumbelina played in the petal boat of the tulip and floated on a plate of water. She used 2 horse hairs as oars to sail around the lake. She had a beautiful voice. She played, floated, rowed the boat and sailed around by singing and singing and singing beautifully. Thumbelina snatched by a cunning frog. After playing for a long time, Thumbelina fell asleep in her walnut shell. As she was sleeping, a huge frog looked at sleeping Thumbelina in the shell through the window. The frog simply gazed at her, stunned at her beauty. She thought that Thumbelina would be the right girl for her son and picked her, ran away with her. Unfortunately, no one noticed Thumbelina snatched by a frog. The large frog carried her to the pond where her family lives. She introduced the beautiful Thumbelina to her ugly and fatty son, who was a mama's boy. Even the ugly son pleased when he saw her. However, both the mom and son frogs were frightened that the beautiful prisoner may escape from them. Rather than let her run away from their custody, she put Thumbelina in a water lily and put the lily into the middle of the pond. Mom and son were happy that Thumbelina won't be able to escape from there. In the meanwhile, they both started preparing for the marriage. How Thumbelina escaped from the trap. The bitter talks of two frogs were heard by two minnows that were playing in the pond. They decided to help Thumbelina escape from the trap. The minnows, with the help of a butterfly, pushed the lily. The leaf with lily floated far away from the pond and Thumbelina escaped. Thumbelina encountered many problems. Although Thumbelina escaped from the frogs, she was soon captured by a beetle. However, very soon the beetle freed Thumbelina as she appeared very different. The summer approached and Thumbelina wandered in grasslands and across the flowers. She hardly found good food to eat. She ate pollen as her meals and dew as her drink. Soon, the rainy season appeared. It made the places nasty. The little girl struggled too hard to find good shelter. Even though she recovered from the heavy water drops of rainy season, the winter made her struggle even more. The winter was terrible and she could not find food. While she was roaming on the meadows, a big spider offered her help to provide food and shelter. The spider took her to a hollow tree and fed her with chestnuts. When the spider called his family to meet his new friend, the beautiful Thumbelina, others discriminated her as she looked different. She cried loudly and left Spider's home. Again, she wandered on the cold meadows. She saw a little cottage made of wood and leaves. Thumbelina decided to request help and knocked the door of the little cottage. It was a house of a mouse. The mouse was amazed at the beauty of Thumbelina. She requested him to help her and offer her shelter. The field mouse asked her to stay with him as long as she wishes. One day, the field mouse brought a friend, a rich mole. Field mouse asked Thumbelina to sing a song and she sang so beautifully and the mouse and the mole were well impressed by her singing. The field mouse ordered Thumbelina to marry the mole as he was very rich. The mouse was so cruel to her and she decided to run away from him. The mole planned for their marriage in the summer. After a few days, she nursed a swallow bird and gave her food every day. They became closer and the swallow bird shared her story. During the onset of spring, the swallow was completely cured and decided to fly away. She offered Thumbelina to join her. She made every possible attempt to escape from the mole marrying her. She was thinking and horrified how she going live in a tunnel with mole for the whole life. Just before a day of her wedding, the swallow asked her to join and spend a day in the sky. Without a second thought, Thumbelina grabbed the finger of the bird. The bird carried Thumbelina over the hills, meadows, plains, and until they reached the flower country. The country was full of colorful flowers. The swallow gently placed her on a beautiful flower, where she met the king of flower fairies. The king was impressed by her beauty, asked her to marry him and she instantly said yes. She became the queen of flowers. They lived happily ever after. 6. Golden Windows. Little Molly lived in a small beautiful town. Her tiny house is constructed on the banks of a beautiful river near the mountain. She was the only daughter for her parent. Although they weren't very rich, they lived happily. Her house was surrounded by huge trees and beautiful plants. It was a single-bedded house, made of woods. Molly did not like her house very much. She felt that the house was too small and not very neat. Little Molly was very fond of the mountain. The steep and sloppy mountain had a beautiful but abandoned castle-like home with golden windows. Yes, she liked the home on top of the mountain because of the glittering golden windows. The windows sparkled and glazed so beautifully that little Molly was completely mesmerized. She went crazy for the glittering golden windows and she started to hate her home more. However, little Molly was so sweet and she understood the struggles her family undergoing. So she accepted everything silently. Still, her desire went on growing. Years passed by and she grew up quickly. She became 12 years and looked very beautifully like a golden princess. She believed that she is supposed to live in a house with golden windows, not in an old wood house. As she grown older, her mom allowed her to move around her house. It was holidays for Molly and she requested her mom that she wanted to wander in the garden near the river. Her mom also agreed and told her not to go so far. Molly decided to climb the mountain and peek into the house with the golden windows. She took her bicycle and started her journey towards reaching the top of mountain. She found a narrow road in the mountain towards the abandoned home in the mountain. With so many struggles, she reached the top of the mountain. She was so shocked to see the dirtiest house, in fact the damaged castle with dark windows. What she used to see from her home wasn't there in the mountain. Yes, the golden windows she saw from the lap of the mountain were in fact the reflection of the dark and dirty windows. She was very upset and sat quietly for some time as she lost words. Her desire got vanished. Suddenly, she looked at her home. A window in her was shining like gold. She realized that the sun rays reflecting in the water makes the window glows. The truth was she lived in her dream home, the home with beautiful golden windows. She realized it too late. What she dreamt for years just vanished away. So understand that all glitters are not gold,